Hello and welcome to the second workshop on quality assurance. This workshop is going to focus on some of the quality assurance tools with a particular focus on group dynamics. My name is Dr. Claude Presnell. I serve as the president of the Tennessee Independent Colleges and Universities in Nashville, Tennessee. And this presentation is brought to you by IREX in conjunction with TACUA. First, just a very brief review on our previous session. First, we explored the question of why quality, which I think is an important question to answer as an institution, and make sure that that answer is shared by all the key stakeholders at the university. The second was that we identified that the mission statement of the institution should be the prime driver for quality improvement. Many of your comments indicated that you have yet to accomplish this by establishing an institution mission. I would encourage you that this should be the very first project because it will drive all quality assurance programs henceforth. As well, make sure that each department, each program, down to each course has a mission statement as well. It's very important that the institution have a connectedness on their mission statements towards supporting the overall institution's mission. We also identified that there's a broad set of stakeholders interested in higher education quality assurance and realized that those stakeholders will move into subsets and become more identifiable the further down you go into the university. In other words, from the university level down to the department level or to the administrative function level down to the programmatic level. As well, we also identified the need for significant broad-based government and institutional commitment and quality assurance. And then finally, we understood that we live in a global context. I think what's important, though, as we look at quality assurance is that we need to understand group dynamics. Why do groups actually resist change? And there are a number of reasons why individuals do. One, loss of control. The fear that in a change process that they're going to lose control of what they know today. And they understand the current process, so this loss of familiarity, moving to something new and uncertain, really instills a lot of fear in people. And so they want to be able to make sure that they know what's going on because they know their current process, but they have no idea what direction this is going to lead. So this idea of uncertainty and all that kind of instills fear, and so the group process needs to make sure that it dispels fear and actually helps people to embrace quality assurance and change over time. And this whole idea of surprises. Nobody likes a surprise, especially as it relates to their own daily work. Now, we may love a surprise when it comes to celebrating a birthday or some type of an anniversary or something, but nobody likes to be surprised by changing their daily work into an area that they're uncertain about. So there's this comfort of habit. And I'm sure you've all heard this. Well, we've always done it that way. And we've done it that way for years. Why do we need to change it now? Well, this comfort of habit gets you into, many times, a routine that is often quite unproductive. And so this comfort of habit is another reason why people resist change. And then the fear that they're going to be asked to do more work with no more resources. That this process of change is going to mean that I'm going to have to put in more hours, I'm going to have to do more tasks, but I'm not going to receive the support necessary to get those things accomplished. Whether that is additional financial support for the department, maybe even increase in wages, that they may not get additional help by increased staff, or maybe they need additional up-to-date computer resources or office resources. Nevertheless, there is always a fear around more work with no more resources. And then finally, this idea of competence and skills. They are fearful, many people are fearful, that they're not going to have the competency level necessary for what results in the new process, nor will they be given the skills improvement set in order to accommodate the quality improvement result as well. So how do you engage others in change? One, involve as many as you can in the full process to get buy-in or create ownership. In other words, those stakeholders you identified, make sure that you engage as many of them as possible. They may be on the team for change, or they just may serve as consultants to the team for the change. Nevertheless, Include as many as you possibly can in that process. Communicate clearly and often. This needs to be one of the most open, transparent processes that you do. You need to communicate clearly to key stakeholders and also to those who have any vested interest in the process, and you need to do it often through the quality assurance process. So as you're starting to change a process, communicate clearly and often. Divide implementation into small manageable steps. Make sure that what you do is manageable, that people can see that there's an end to a particular step, and that they can be able to actually accomplish what it is that's been set before them. And then finally, celebrate small victories. And along the way, identify benchmark points within your process that you can actually take a breath, celebrate it. This increases stamina for the larger project, and also it maintains momentum so that the project will never get bogged down and stopped. So let commitment grow over time. Some processes will move quicker than others, but let the commitment grow, but don't let the lack of commitment slow you down too much. There may be certain things you need to delay because there's not consensus around how to move forward. Again, make clear all expectations about individual work, the group work, and the ultimate outcome of each of those steps you identify in quality assurance. Reward achievement and effort, and also highlight positive examples during the process. That's that idea, again, of celebrating small segments and take time to do that, but also through the process, highlight very positive examples of how people are interacting with one another, about how departments are actually performing. Celebrate as well and highlight examples of the way things were done in the past that you don't want to change because it's still effective. And so just make sure that people understand it's a very positive process. Make sure, though, that your quality process has sufficient resources. You got to make sure that you have sufficient amount of time and resources for the process to come to completion. Nothing's worse than to get halfway through the process, run out of resources to be able to complete it, and then it fall apart. And then celebrate the past. It's very important that you affirm the work of the institution and those who came before you. People are resistant to change, remember that. So you need to make sure in a way that you celebrate what's brought you to this point, so then you can agree that you need to move forward. There needs to also be a facilitator that you identify to help move the group along. And the facilitator is someone who may have some working understanding of the process, but they're not wedded to it. They set the ground rules for group operation, exactly how it is that you want to operate, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable as a group. They remain objective throughout the entire process. They are not only not emotionally engaged in the process, but also not emotionally engaged in the ultimate outcome, so they can remain objective. They keep the group focused and functioning and move that group into that stated goal that you're looking for. The facilitator is the one who needs to completely understand the various tools that are available for quality assurance. They need to be well trained. They need to understand when a particular tool is most useful to moving the group ahead toward accomplishing its goal. I would encourage you to take a look at some work by Bruce Tuckman, who talks more about group dynamics and he puts it into these various categories where the group comes together and they form, get to know each other. Then there's a storming phase that always takes place among all groups, where there's brainstorming, there's confusion around ideas. People start to get focused on too much detail and they get away from the process. But then it'll finally move into a norming stage where things become more clear, how they work together, what the goals are, and how the processes can move toward completion. And then a group will move toward the performing stage where they're actually able to come to very concrete steps on improving a process. And then finally, I add the one on mourning, where, believe it or not, when a group goes through a process that's been successful, they are regretful that it's over. And not that you don't have ongoing improvement, but many times the task of a particular group has been completed and it needs to be handed off to another group for ongoing performance evaluation. So what are some of the tools real quick? And I'm just going to introduce you to these. There's the solve. Solve is where you select a process to improve. You organize a team of stakeholders around it that have vested interest in it. And again, you identify a facilitator to facilitate the team. And you also identify limits on your team as to who's going to be involved in it all the way through versus who's going to come in it from an advisory capacity. You thoroughly understand and learn your current process. You cannot improve a process unless you thoroughly understand your current process. And then you verify causes of variation within that process. In other words, what is it we're trying to solve? What's caused those variations so that you can begin identifying points of improvement and then enter into the improvement process. Another one that goes along with that quite well is the PDCA by Walter Schuhart, which was later adopted by Edwards-Deming. And you can see there on the graphic that this is a cyclical process. First thing that you do is you plan, which is kind of what we saw in the previous tool, the solve tool. You plan the process. You do. The do means that you actually implement a pilot to then check the results. And then you act by finding out where it failed, where it was successful, and then you plan again for ongoing improvement. So you identify its shortcomings, you make adjustments, then you plan again, you do it again, and then eventually it will be implemented on a full-scale process. Another one is the SWOT analysis. Many of you are familiar with. I've seen that in your discussion, so I won't spend any time on that one. I want to just conclude by looking at some of the comments that Edwards-Deming encouraged, I think, everyone involved in ongoing quality assurance, is that when we want to understand that we want to improve constantly and forever. This is not episodic, something that's done. The PDCA graphic that we looked at earlier indicated that it's cyclical in its process. We want to institute a culture of lifelong learning in training on the job. We want people to understand that there's always more to learn. There are always ways that we can improve. And we want to institute leadership and not merely supervision. And this is really absolutely key. Those who are in leadership roles at our campuses need to understand that they're not about supervising people in a very punitive way, but they need to come alongside all their employees to institute this entire idea of ongoing improvement and looking at failures as opportunities for improvement, not opportunities for punishment. We need to drive out fear so that everyone may contribute to the betterment of the university. And we've talked about that under group dynamics, but we need to address that in the culture of our institution. Drive out fear so that people will say, hey, listen, this didn't work right, so how can we improve it and make sure that we can do it better next time? We also need to break down barriers between departments and between universities. Many times universities operate within silos and they don't communicate with one another. There's often places where we can consolidate services to increase efficiencies through quality improvement, but it can't be done if we're not talking with one another. So let's break down those barriers and open up communication and transparency. He also said, eliminate management by objective and instill pride in work. In other words, get away from the mentality of, hey, this is my job, and someone may ask me to do something, but it's not my job, somebody else ought to do that for me. Get away from this management by objective. You know, the idea that, listen, I'm going to come in within these set hours, I'm going to do it, and I will only address those things relevant to what I've been told to do. But instill pride at all levels of the university so that people feel that they have buy-in to making the institution better. And institute programs of improvement for processes, which is what you do in your quality enhancement offices, but also for individuals. How can you equip them better in order to be involved in the quality improvement process? And then engage everyone at the university to implement and sustain quality improvement. This is something we've said numerous times and still remains true today. So engage everyone, keep the operation open and transparent, and celebrate those victories along the way. I hope you found this introduction on quality tools to be helpful, and I look forward to dialoguing with you on the IREX website in the discussion board. Thank you very much.